evening, everybody. This is a meeting of the Finance Committee. It is Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. Do I have a motion to open?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. During tonight's meeting, we are going to finish up our voting on budgets that we held last week, and we are going to take votes on all of the articles so we can get everything finalized, because the warrant has to be ready for this Friday, I believe, on the 23rd. And Julie has some updates with regards to state aid, so Julie.
Okay. So earlier this week, we did get some information back from the House Ways and Means. The governor had proposed like a level fund for the state aid revenue this year, but that was early on. And the House, when they came out, they actually level funded as well. There's a slight increase in the Chapter 70. I think the conversation has been, funding the Chapter 70 according to the legislation that was passed 2 years ago, and then the pandemic kind of shook everything up. So we are level funded and actually slightly increased for our proposal. We still do have the Senate Ways and Means and then the final numbers. But typically, if the House is recommending something, it won't be too off from that recommendation. So at this point, I feel confident that we can remove the 5% cut in state aid revenue that we had originally projected and look to level fund that. And so I've plugged in on my end in the revenue, whichever one was less between the governor and the House Ways and Means. I think it was, actually the House Ways and Means was slightly less in the revenue. So I did plug that in, so it's a conservative between the two, but we are looking at a much better number for balancing the budget at this point without losing that $410,000. So. The numbers that I have, again, you guys haven't finished voting the budget lines, but the budget lines as presented right now, I'm showing a $33,143 deficit based on these numbers as presented.
And that factors in all the COLA adjustments.
Yep, so there are 1.5% increases for non-union employees in the town and 1.5% increases for the ASME clerical union employees that was approved by the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday. So those COLAs have been input. The other two unions that don't have contracts have been level funded. That's the police and the DPW. So whenever they're negotiated, they'll have to go to a town meeting to get funding for their COLAs. So that takes that into account, and we're at negative 33,143.
Thanks for that,
That's
Julie.
a balanced budget. Almost.
Yeah. Okay, before we start voting on our committee's budget and then onto the school, we were going to make an amendment, so I need somebody to make the motion with regards to what we voted on the reserve fund amount last week. It's what general fund for the reserve fund.
We like to wait for that amendment till after we do the budget, the school budget.
You want to do that at the end?
Would it make sense?
Yeah, I think it might make sense. Then we'll know what.
Okay, all right,
To change it
all right,
to.
so we'll do that at the end.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go right to our budget, Finance Committee. Since we didn't, we held that last week. We have one on it.
Yeah, with respect to line item 511300, salaries clerical, I recommend we move that we increase that line item to $3,500.
I'll second that.
Just for clarification, are we looking to priority other secretaries who have the flat fee per meeting and then a higher hourly rate for any other hours that are spent doing agenda work?
Yeah, I think we should look into that
Okay.
going forward, yes.
Yeah, I looked into that and with that one, that was sufficient.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on that. Any further discussion?
My reason for increasing that line item is to bring secretary for the finance committee in line with the secretaries of all the other departments that have a secretary who attends meetings and gives the information for the different boards. Presently, secretary of the finance committee is the only one that doesn't have the same pay scale as those other board secretaries.
I agree. Okay, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, next budget we held, you want to do golf first or school? Anybody have a preference?
So we could golf first.
Okay, all right, so we'll do golf.
It's a tough one.
It's page 31, the last one on booklet. So it looks like we're gonna have to vote on the golf reserve fund first, that's separate. And that is, the request is for $100,000, which is level funded with what was approved last year at town meeting.
Motion approved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
To the golf budget?
For the reserve fund.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
What was that figure?
100,000.
Oh, I thought
Reserve
so.
fund. Okay, so now the golf enterprise fund, which is not funded through taxation, in case, people watching out there think it's paid through taxes. It's not, it's fully funded through user fees. And the amount they are requesting for FY '22 is $1,017,536. And that is level funded with last year's town meeting vote.
You said
Hold on. Yeah.
Is that right?
No, this is page.
Did I miss a page?
1,066.
Oh, all right, I did. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Well, the last one is debt service.
So you have salaries, expenses, and then debt service.
Right.
So you should have an update. The salary total should be 558,524. Do you guys have that? For salaries, 558,524. And, sorry, you probably don't, because
Okay,
that's
see, I
me,
thought that was part
that's
of it.
me plugging in the 1.5% for the treasurer collector and updating the longevity, because they missed someone for longevity, so. The top numbers were all the same, 68,494, 99,309, 44,553, 76,700, 59,300, 202,464, and then we just had to change those bottom two. The treasurer collector should be 5,404, which is a 1.5% increase, and the longevity should be 2,300, for a total of 558, 524 for salaries.
Okay. I think what I did was I did the final total between both.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I did.
But I realized that I didn't give you guys, I didn't reprint everything after I did the 1.5% COLAs, because I wanted to save some trees, so the number will be slightly off from what you have. But the total for golf with that in there is 1,505,470 for a total.
1,505,400?
1,505,470. Yep. So just slightly up.
What was the percent increase on that?
It is 2.8 overall.
Make a motion, 1,505,470.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion?
I don't really know a whole lot about this budget because we didn't really have a very good presentation. So I'm probably not voting in favor of this. I don't know how many rounds, I don't know how much it increased, I don't know anything about it. Who's getting the raises? I mean, I don't know.
So they did, I forget now.
I know they're up substantially, but
I forget now what presentation was what, but I do know that for the
we've got the Browns
salaries.
guy did ours.
Yeah, so the salaries, there were 4 employees who were rated on the wage and classification who hadn't been rated before. And so that's why if you look, some of them, like the assistant superintendent is up at 10.1%. And so some of them are higher than what they normally would be with just a COLA because they did that wage and classification.
And where did that data come from?
We had a wage and classification that was approved townwide. I won't say townwide. The groundwork for the wage and classification was completed by a vendor 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And so it kind of outlines, there are like 14 different categories. And for each category, there's like a scale, depending on the responsibilities or the amount of labor or, experience, knowledge. It goes through and you look at not the employee, but the position, and you should rate and say, okay, this position is more labor intensive, so it scores higher here, but doesn't need a master's degree, so it's here. And so you kind of go through for each position, plug in the numbers, and I think for the golf committee, you had a group of people from golf who all rated the positions and discussed it and agreed on, these numbers here, and at the end, when you total up all the numbers, it corresponds with a grade. And so I think that's what the golf did. I will say that the Board of Selectmen haven't had a chance to review and approve it. We are putting forward the budget as they presented, but the Selectmen still have to go through and approve the wage and class as they presented, so the numbers could end up being lower if they come back and say like, oh, we don't agree with this grade. But that is why some of those positions have higher increases.
Thank you.
The whole town did that.
It was
All
non-union,
non-union.
but not even everyone. Like we found out, like the planner wasn't done. I mean, so it's nice to have like the outline. where you could try to rate somebody, but I also think when it was done, the numbers don't add up well all the time, and so I do think it has a lot of flaws, and I'd love to have that revisited and reworked. But yeah, most of the non-union employees
We
were
worked on that,
rated.
we worked on it almost 2 months.
Yeah.
We're trying to get that straight.
Mhm.
And I think it was a fair, real fair deal.
Yep.
We even had someone trying to say what they were doing all that, so we interviewed them.
Oh, good.
And I think it was a very fair thing.
So we have a motion and a second on that budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm fine.
You're,
I'm good. Yep.
you're up, yes?
It's, I guess I was concerned that the dollars that they're signing to these positions were developed. I don't know by who. That was my concern.
Yep.
So if it's objective, am I right?
We had to go by it.
Yeah.
And all the different questions on each individual job, each individual position. We had to rate how much skill it took, how much knowledge it took, how much, work it took. Put all together.
It is meant to be objective, and like that, I haven't had a chance to review it myself in the selectmen, but, the golf committee objectively went through it and rated everyone and discussed it. And I know when I first came on, we had started doing that process. I think we got through 2 employees, and I helped out with it, and then it kind of sat idle for a while, and I redid it. It is a lot to
So
go.
the town is not doing performance evaluations?
I'd love to do that.
Gee whiz.
Okay, so that budget passed unanimously. Okay, so on to the last budget that we held last week, which was the school department. We have to make a decision on that tonight. Does anyone want to make a motion on the school department?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a double motion, but it may have to be split, so, because we did take action on part of it before. I move that we level fund the school department budget for which was an increase of $386,415, a 2.6% increase. I move that we level fund that budget to last year's appropriation. That's
I
correct?
second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
What was that number again?
386,415. I did have one amendment, I think we had a discussion, and then I propose an amendment to that, because
Well, we have to make a final vote on what you just, motion you made.
motion has been made,
So we have a motion
second,
and a
It's a
second.
level fund, right?
level fund.
All in favor?
Well, I think we should have some
You want
discussion.
the discussion first?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate that we, for the general public and for, for our own edification, why I'm making this motion, and then I hope what can proceed from that. I spent a great deal of time deliberation on this particular budget. I think there were some very good points made when there were comparison, like the MCAS scores. The comparables we had didn't really match until they mentioned that we are comparable with Massachusetts, Mattapoisett in our composition of compatibility, and in no way does the annual per capita income of Acushnet match those of Mattapoisett. So it's much more of an affluent community than Acushnet. And therefore, it reflects in the MCAS scores how Acushnet was lower than Mattapoisett. Then I think comes in the School Reform Act, which is supposed to have filled in the gaps of more affluent communities with struggling communities, and so therefore they can use their resources to increase the MCAS scores, so the children of students from either community can compete in life equally. So it's a compensatory type. That's the whole School Reform Act, and that's why we get more money than Mattapoisett to do. It's not fair, for example, if someone's living in Mattapoisett Road in Acushnet, and someone just lives on the other side and lives in Mattapoisett, then in turn the child's advantages in Mattapoisett in getting into college, getting in scholarships and all the opportunities available, it's unfair just because of a false boundary line, so to speak. However, so therefore I was really saying, yes, we have to use all resources, available resources, to increase the MCAS scores. But we were presented with a vague administrative strategic plan on how to accomplish that with the addition of many positions. There was no built-in accountability measures. There was no precise job descriptions of how these positions fit in with the curriculum, and how the whole curriculum, what type of curriculum it was, and what's the reputation on using that curriculum in other communities. So it left in my estimation, a very vague type of plan. Secondly of all, we have over $1 million in school under the rescue plan coming to the school department, and I don't know how that would fit with some of the positions that we have, that are being asked for. So therefore, it was like, it was almost a triple whammy, in the sense that we had a lot of built-in surplus in the budget, which can be applied. We've got level state aid coming in, and next year's looks very much better. But on the other hand, then we have the federal. So it just didn't make, in my estimation, sense. What I'm suggesting that we do is level fund, and try to hold some of that funds that were part of that, or the whole of that $386,000 in some type of reserve. So if a strategic plan that makes economic sense, and efficiency, and we're able to accomplish the goals to increase MCAS scores, which we are all in agreement to do. You see a comprehensive plan, then we can maybe add on. Also give them an opportunity to find how the federal funds can be integrated into that budget. So we're accomplishing a lot of things, and we're accomplishing a very streamlined, efficient type of operation. It looks as though this plan, with all the things in the air, it looks like it's just taking paint and throwing it against the wall, and then hope that we have a beautiful picture. I mean, that's my opinion. So I'm sorry I took so long, but I want to explain in my painful type of, I want to appreciate some of my colleagues have allowed me to call them and listen to me rave on many times, but, in private, while I'm trying to search for a solution. So that is my, so that's the first, motion I've made, and I want to follow with the second if possible. Oh, you want to amend?
Yeah, John, just one other thing too, I want everybody, I mean, we know here, but I want everybody who's listening to also understand level funding, right, because there's been a significant drop in tuition, in the high school tuition, school choice out of district of $500,000, that still gives the school department money to do things that they need, like curriculum, like some of the other things that were mentioned, which I think we fully support, but without some sort of plan or an understanding of where the priorities are, I think a number of us asked a number of times, we don't have a good sense of where the money is going to go and how it's going to be spent. And to your point, Joan, how this fits into the strategic plan of the school to improve MCAS scores, and like where's our plan 5 years from now? What's our plan? Where are we going to be in 2025? I didn't get any of that. I just got a whole bunch of, we want to do this, that, and the other thing, and I don't know how that's supposed to help. So how do we know if that's, money wisely spent? And then the other thing, we also have to think about the rest of the town, right? The other committees that we asked to level fund, right? Because we thought this was going to be a worse year. Fortunately, it's not going to be as bad, it seems, as where we originally thought. So we can't have some members tightening their belts and some members not. This is the town's money to be spent amongst the town appropriately.
One factor why we may have not received, this is why maybe we should have some leeway as far as holding the money, some of the funds in abeyance, for a second visit on a plan, is that, all school administrations have been outstretched in this COVID, the demands of remote learning and scheduling, and it is probably, so therefore a good strategic plan has probably been a backseat, in the sense because they've dealt with some, using the care money and appropriately, so it's probably been an administrative nightmare. I would even think that maybe the school, if they had any extra money this year, even hire a consultant to work out this type of strategic plan, and with all the funds they have, because of the great demands on, I think, on the administration. So I'm not faulting them in any way, but I think they've had a lot on their plate. So maybe didn't give the thought that we expected. We saw X number of people being hired all at once. Well, how is this going to work? And that's why. So the second, I don't know if it's amendment that 386,450, whether it be or some of that amount be transferred to reserve. And then we can take a second visit along with other needs of the town, rather than, so we can, not just ditch this proposal, but at least streamline it and make it more effective. That's. I don't know if they can be part of the amendment to that motion.
I think we can come back to that later.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for both your input, Sue and John. I know, John, you served on many boards and committees in this town over the course of your life here, and it's greatly appreciated, and I think you're a wealth of knowledge. So your input with regard to this, I think, is invaluable, especially since you've served on the school committee in the past. But, looking at all the budgets from all the departments, I mean, we have to, be fiscally conservative and responsible. In all departments, we like to see transparency in all departments, and I think for the most part we do. But we're all on the same page as far as providing good services to the town, minimizing taxes as much as we can, and being fiscally responsible. that being said, all this the stimulus money and COVID money and grants, I mean, unfortunately, it's going to come to an end at some point. And we have to be cognizant of that. Be prepared for that later on when we're back to our usual budget cycle and there is not any extra governmental funds coming to us. So, that being said, on this budget, we had a motion and a second. We discussed it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, can we make a motion that we transfer, that 386,000 into a reserve fund where we can hold it for a second visit, not up to, along with other town needs.
Why don't we do that after we go through the articles? We're going to go through all the articles now, and then we'll save that right for the end.
Thank you very much. Okay? As long as the motion will be accepted.
Okay, so we're going to go through the articles here. Some were already eliminated as we discussed some of that last week. Julie will give us any updates as we go along here. So I guess I'm gonna read the articles as they're written, and then we'll take we'll have a motion and a second and we'll vote. Okay, so the first article is to see if the town will accept the reports of its officers, boards, departments, committees, and commissions as printed in the 2020 annual report or act on anything relative thereto.
Motion approved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I believe number 2 was taken off the table. Okay, number 3. To see if the town will raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of $11,000 to be added to line item 0103-52900, snow removal / ice control, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Number 4, to see if the town will vote under the provisions of the general laws in Massachusetts, Chapter 41, 108, there's a symbol here.
Section.
Section, I couldn't see it on there. Or any amendments thereto to fix the salaries of all elected officials and to fund and approve collective bargaining agreements for fiscal year 2022, and raise and appropriate any sum or sums therefore, and further raise and appropriate any sum or sums of money for the maintenance of the several departments in the town and for other necessary charges in accordance with the amount recommended by the Finance Committee as shown in the final column of the warrant.
So this will be the budget.
Motion approved.
Thanks. So we have a second? All in favor?
That's the complete budget, right?
Yeah, so I mean, we can come back to that if you want after you do your reserve.
That include the school budget?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
everything.
everything.
Yeah,
That's
everything.
everything. So we might want to save that for the end if you want to make a change to the totals for the reserve.
Okay. All right, so we'll hold that. We'll hold that so you just can't forget to go back to that. All right, number 5 has to do with golf. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum or sums of money to operate the golf club enterprise fund as shown below.
So that'll be built in. You guys have just approved the golf budget, so I'll be filling in all that information in based on what you guys gave for the budget with the revenues and the expenses.
Okay, so we essentially already voted to approve all that.
You did,
To
yeah.
approve?
Make a motion.
Motion approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed? Okay, number 8, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for state or federal grants and to extend any monies received as outlined in the appropriate grant application, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Question. The rescue money, would that be included in this, in this article?
In article number 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just, it's one of those housekeeping articles, essentially every year that we just vote, and it allows us to apply, because, you know, you guys, anything that we spend in town needs to be appropriated, and obviously grants are outside of that appropriation, so having this article here, in general, allows us to apply for grants and then spend from the appropriation from the grant.
Oh,
So essentially, it's giving
because we
appropriation.
were talking about the role of the finance committee
Yes.
in the way this was meant to expend any monies received.
Yep.
That would exclude any input from the finance committee, is that correct?
I mean, it doesn't say in here that it excludes the recommendation of the finance committee. But typically, like, we apply for grants a lot. We have a lot of grants that come in, once I can tell you.
I understand that, but a large chunk of money like that.
Yeah. So
I would like to see some, you know, some more input from various, you know, sources in town.
No, absolutely. I did reach out to the Board of Selectmen and I let them know that. I've had a few meetings on the ARP funding, and you know, it does look like we'll be getting over $3 million. I let the selectmen know they're on board to have joint meetings and make sure that the finance committee is included. And again, information is still trickling in, so we're still trying to figure out what exactly it can be spent on and what it can't be spent on. But absolutely, we'll make sure we have review. This article is like, the ARP is a little bit different because we're not applying for it. It's like a grant that they're just giving to us, right? It's
Okay.
rescue money. So I mean, I actually don't even know if it would fall under the number 8 category because we're not applying for it, but I do understand what you're saying. I don't think that there's an article that we would need to have on town meeting to say, you know, the ARP money needs to be, you know, reviewed by everyone before it's spent. Although I have seen some information too, again, nothing's definitive has come out, but something I saw today said that you can have the ARP money be appropriated at a town meeting. You can have it be a legislative.
Okay, and we would be the recommending body for that, if it's going to be appropriated by the town meeting. That would be proceed. That's by legislation, I believe.
So right now they said that it can be, but again, they haven't given us definitives. But I think that would be helpful if we wanted to go that route. I mean, it's over $3 million, so there definitely should be a lot of input, and I agree with that.
Thank you. I thought I don't want to make a long meeting, but I just want.
No, you're doing a good job. You're doing good. All right, so I think we voted on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so number 9, to see if the town will vote to accept and expend any sum or sums of money that may be available from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Massachusetts Department of Transportation for Chapter 90 type construction, improvements, and/or reconstruction of public ways and associated equipment, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into contracts relative thereto, and to appropriate said sums or sums in anticipation of reimbursement from the Commonwealth, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, number 10, to see if the town will vote to authorize the town treasurer, with the consent of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of the revenue for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 4, and to issue a note or notes as may be given for a period of less than 1 year in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 17, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion approved.
All, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Number 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide the sums recommended, or any other sum or sums for capital improvement budget for the departments of the town as set forth in the following schedule, and determine whether such sums will be provided by taxation, or by transfer, or by a combination thereof.
And so, if I can on this one, from the sheet that you have, the Board of Selectmen did pull out the DPW new sweeper for $275,000. So the total in that article of everything else should be $508,000, 508.
Okay, just so everyone knows, if we decide to go ahead with this and approve the new loader, the next article, number 12, for $90,000 to repair the old loader is going to be taken off the table.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we accept Article 11 as read with the 508,000.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed? Okay, number 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $90,000 for the purpose of repairing the 2002 John Deere 544 loader for use within the Department of Public Works, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. So this was conditional article if the new loader wasn't passed, so this article would be taken off the table.
So you should still give a recommendation in case the loader is voted down at town meeting, so at least you have a recommendation for the next article, the 90,000. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make that. So do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion on
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
that. Aye.
No one's opposed?
And so, yeah, at town meeting, if that article gets
Just in
approved,
case, yeah.
we'll table it, we'll end up taking it there.
Okay, number 13. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $20,000 for the purpose of hiring a professional appraisal company for comprehensive appraisals of industrial properties, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. So Julie, I actually have a question on this one.
Okay.
Do we have somebody in town now that would do appraisals already?
So this is gonna be a new vendor. I don't know if there's anyone in town who does it, but right now, the assessor has said that, she has an appraisal for them, but she's not an expert at a lot of these. It's just for the industrial zoned properties, and they're specific. So typically you'll hire a vendor, a consultant, who has a lot of experience with those types of companies, because there's a lot to them, like the value of the equipment, and things like that. It's all very specific to that type of work that's being done in that zone, whatever the business is. So right now, Kelly has an appraisal for them, obviously, but she feels that having a professional do it would be better for the town, that they would probably raise the values, and we'll have a better sense of what the values are.
Remember, didn't she talk about this last year?
This was on for last year before COVID hit, and we had to pull everything.
Right. How many industrial properties are we talking? Do we know?
I think there are 5. I think there are only like 5. She had given us some.
So the 20,000 obviously is just for those 5.
Yep, just for the ones that are industrial, yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Did we already have like, ever have an outside company doing that? Us?
I believe she said she was doing them. She thought that the town
towns could be losing money in that, like Julie just said, there's aspects of industrial property that needs to be looked at more by the town.
Yep, so there are 4. So it's the Acushnet Company, Tilcon Caldy, which is PJ Keating, Hopkinton and Star Electric, and Miller Holdings, LLC. So those are the 4 properties that would be subject to this.
And I would hope that we'd be able to offset the 20,000.
Yeah,
I mean, this is
the amount that we'll get will offset that, yeah. And again, if you have a professional, you know, people can always appeal your values with an abatement, but having a professional do it, you're obviously,
We have a better story.
you have better standing, yeah.
So this will, I mean, this will ultimately increase the tax liability of those businesses.
Yes.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Opposed? Okay, number 14, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of hiring a consultant to review and update the town's zoning bylaws, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
I make a motion to accept that.
Just a quick question. Is there a certain amount of time that we need to have this reviewed, the zoning bylaws? I mean, is this a 5-year process that we should be considering having consultants?
I don't know if there's a set time, but I don't think we've ever had everything reviewed. And I think there's a lot that's come up recently where we've had, I mean, as you can see from this warrant itself, there's a lot of bylaw adjustments. And so I think, I mean, it would be something that'd be nice to do every, you know, 10, 15 years. But the other hope is that if we can kind of get this done and start from scratch, we can focus more and, you know, hopefully we'll have a new plan or two and have town council focus more on any new articles, bylaw change articles that come on to make sure that there's no contradiction with the existing and we can prevent it from getting as bad as it is right now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it is something that probably every,
This will all tie into the master plan, right?
yeah. I mean, having our bylaws flow together better is definitely, you know, going to help us achieve whatever we need.
This was something that was typically done by the town planner, correct?
I mean, I think the town planner should be focusing on any new changes and how they impact the current bylaws. But I don't know how much was done before with this specifically and how it kind of got to the point that it's at now. Because we're kind of at the point now where it feels like a lot of stuff is contradictory.
I've seen the outcome of towns that have updated, you know, the bylaws and made them make sense. And you can locate immediately what you're looking for. It was a pleasure to follow. Ours have been
I just wasn't sure if it was
incremental,
time
and added on and added on, and they it takes time to you know, and then they have to look for, you know, different interpretations, different you know, because they've been put in at different times. So there's got to be, you know, updating it will make a great deal of sense in my estimation.
Even, like you said, the definitions, even, you know, as town council reviews stuff for us, even this warrant, you know, they're like, oh, you know, you could define this too, you know, at a later meeting and give more clarity to it. So I think over time, if you get to a point naturally where a lot of stuff should be relooked at. I don't know if I have a set date, but I do think, yeah, every, you know, I don't know, 10, 15 years, it's probably worthwhile to look through. And I have to say a lot of other towns are doing this. When I kind of had the idea in my head, and then the other managers were sharing the same kind of thoughts, like, oh, you know, does anyone have an RFP? And everyone was sharing it, they've all done it. So it seems like this will be something that we probably do every so often to keep in mind.
We don't need to have the master plan in place before this, right?
No, but I think, like,
They go in sequence, they can
It's all in conjunction. I mean, I wouldn't want to make, I mean, the master plan doesn't change your bylaws, but the master plan is impacted by the bylaws that you have. So I think cleaning this up, I know that there's discussion of having a fall town meeting. And, you know, we had Rick Miller and some of the people who are looking at the project down by the river come and talk about doing some changes to the bylaws. And even this, you know, the groundwater overlay district is an article that we pulled. There's a lot of new bylaws that are being approached to get put in, and it just feels like it wouldn't be appropriate to add something big like that without having everything cleaned up and a good review of it. So I think it works in conjunction. It's not necessarily that you need one without the other, but if you're going to be making these changes to accommodate the master plan, then having the bylaws read the way you want them to make sense.
Good. Thank you.
I think this is a good stepping stone to approve this and then to have the master plan on the next
Okay.
warrant.
So we have a motion. Was there a second on this?
I'll second.
Did you make the motion?
I did not.
I did. John made the motion.
Yes.
Okay. You second. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Opposed? Okay, on to number 15. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide the sums recommended, or any other sum or sums for the school capital improvement budget for the departments of the town, as set forth in the following schedule, and to determine whether such sums will be provided by taxation, or by transfer, or by a combination thereof. So,
for this one, from what you have, I'll give you some information. I don't want to overwhelm you. So the school pulled everything except for a handful, and I'll tell you which ones, saying that they could use the funds that they have from their surplus from this year to cover. The ones that they kept on and asked the selectmen to keep on the warrant were the roof preventative maintenance for $15,000, the rooftop antenna replacement for $18,000, the dark fiber installation Middle Road for $60,000, and the curriculum for $75,000. All other items they pulled and said they would cover with their current year surplus. And then the selectmen voted to keep the roof preventative maintenance $15,000 on the warrant, and also the rooftop antenna replacement for $18,000. They did change the language to remove rooftop because there was some discussion about having the antenna on the ground, so we just have it as antenna replacement for $18,000. They removed the $60,000 for the dark fiber installation, and I have reached out to the people who run the CARES to see if that's something where it's, you know, technology related, where it could be covered by the excess CARES money that we have. But that one got pulled completely from the warrant. The curriculum for $75,000, the selectmen pulled off the warrant as well. They felt that we still had the $77,000 left from the fall, the November town meeting that was unused as a buffer, and there wasn't really a stated need for the 75 other than another buffer, so they pulled that one. And then the school had said that they would cover the gymnasium wall, cafe wall, the $84,000 from their current year surplus, but the Board of Selectmen voted to put that on the warrant, but also to have me check and see if CARES would cover it. So, sorry, I know that's a lot, but I wanted to give you the full cap. So the wall, they felt that, you know, it was a good faith move to put it on the warrant. It's something they've asked for a long time, but also to reach out to CARES because, you know, it's helping with the separation of the classrooms and social distancing, and so we feel like it could be something that would be covered by CARES. CARES did get back to me already saying essentially they need more time to review it because they do get back to you within a few days when you ask them a question, but they essentially said we need to look into this in more depth. So by the time town meeting hits, I should definitely have an answer. If CARES will cover the wall, we can table that from this article, but if they are not going to cover it, then the selectmen wanted to leave that one on the warrant. So they have the $15,000 for preventative maintenance, the 18,000 for the antenna replacement and the 84,000 for the replacement gymnasium cafe wall, for a total of $117,000. And that's what's left for you guys to vote on for your recommendation.
Well, that's better than the original amount, which was 361,000.
Yes.
So it's,
It could possibly be 84,000 less.
It
Yeah.
could be 84,000 less, yes.
yes.
I got excited when I saw the email, but it was, you still have to wait.
I'll make a motion to accept as read, $117,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed? Okay, on to, number 16 was taken off
Yeah, number
the
16
table.
was taken off. The school is going to do any transfer to their reserve fund from the current year surplus. And I did let them know they can only have a balance of 2% of the net school spending amount in that fund. And based on the estimates for FY22, it's about 298,000, and they currently have 200. So they do know that. I mean, it'll be close to the 100, but it might be slightly under what they're able to actually transfer. But they'll do that from their current year funds.
Okay. All right, number 17. To see if the town will vote to amend Article 9, Stormwater Management Bylaw of General Bylaws for the town of Acushnet as shown in Appendix A, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
It's a non-funded thing, right?
It's a non-spending article.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I mean, you guys don't have to give a recommendation if it's not a financial article, or you can choose to give a recommendation if you want to. It's up to you.
I should have brought information from the bylaw review to talk about.
I do have on here, the bylaw review committee recommended this article unanimously.
Yes, we did. A lot of these, some of them are related to, of course, some of the, the regulations, on stormwater and floodplain, and also, Acushnet is changing, from a perceived rural community to, suburban, and so there's a lot of growing pains, if you look, and things that have to be clarified. And a lot of these are a result from, the building inspector and some of the dealings that he's tried to enforce, and found that the bylaws didn't really apply in what he was trying to do, because they weren't specific enough. So he's made a lot, we're very fortunate to have his institutional memory, that he could, apply, his expertise that he's developed over the years, apply it into some written form, so I thought it was very, very advantageous to, to have these, these changes, these bylaws brought forth to us. Just a general comment.
Bylaw review committee review all of these and make recommendations?
Yes,
They did.
yes, they did.
I think we should defer to the bylaw review committee if it's a non-spending item.
It is. And I will say for this one, the stormwater management bylaw, this was updated last year, and the update that we're having this year is basically to increase the amount of square footage that's disturbed to trigger a permit. Because right now it's like 5,000 square feet, which if anyone has a project that they're doing at their house, it's most likely going to hit that need for a stormwater permit, and it's just way too much and unnecessary. So the majority of the changes are increasing that square footage that will trigger a permit, so that it will be more tailored to bigger projects that actually need it.
Okay, so we're going to hold
We make motion to that don't pertain to the finance committee, just to bypass this article.
If it's not a spending
That don't
article,
pertain to the,
we won't make a
Well-
recommendation.
Sometimes I agree with you, sometimes we may want to, but it may have financial consequences in the future. We can look at an article and say, wow, this is where this is, with bylaw lead us to, and it will have a financial, and this is where our input would be very valuable. I don't like to establish a precedent of well, if it's not money, no money tied to it, don't, we're not involved, because there is a time when we would need to be involved, and then someone would bring up and say, wait a minute, you have a whole precedent of things that you haven't done, and now you want to do them. So
Historically, we have voted on it.
I think in the past several years, we've made recommendations on non-spending
On everything.
articles.
Yes, we did. That was at the suggestion of, former town administrator, Mr. Noel. He'd asked us to make those recommendations.
I mean, you absolutely can, and I agree, I wouldn't just do it across the board. I would look at each article and see if you feel that there's a need for it. But I agree that if it's not related to the finance committee, that you certainly don't need to give a recommendation, especially where the bylaw review committee has reviewed it and given their own recommendation. So I agree with you, I wouldn't do it across the board, I would look at each article, but you don't have to. You can if you want to.
All right, so do you want to, we'll go through each one, we'll read it, and then if we want to vote on it, then we'll decide if we want to vote on it. And if we don't think it pertains to anything, that it's going to impact anything financially down the
just make a
road.
motion, accept without, just say time to go down, and just do it so we record it.
So do you want me to read each one individually, and then we'll make the decision based on that?
Sure.
Because that's what we'll do. Because we read 17, somebody made a motion, I believe.
I made a motion to accept it. What's the second?
All right, so maybe on that one, we would make a motion to just defer to the bylaw committee.
Bylaw committee, voted on these in a positive manner.
And I withdraw my motion. I'll adjust it to amend it to the bylaw.
So Article 17 will be a recommendation from the bylaw committee, not coming from the finance committee. Okay.
Put me on the spot, will you? I'm chair. So I don't want to try to defend it at town meeting.
However the body feels to be appropriate.
So for number 17, somebody's going to have to make a motion that we follow the bylaw committee recommendation.
And isn't that what Eric just did?
Is that what you did?
Not so many words, but I made an amendment to my
Okay.
motion.
All right, so.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone opposed?
So are we not giving a recommendation?
Finance committee is not recommending on number 17.
Okay. I'm just gonna try it, right?
All right, so I'm going to read through 18, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll decide what we want to do with 18. To see if the town will vote to amend a portion of Section 7 floodplain overlay district by replacing the existing firm maps with new data to become effective July 1st, 2021, and by making the following changes as shown in Appendix B, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. So again, this is another one. I don't have a big knowledge base on this one. I don't know the details of this.
This is a similar article was on town meeting last year. We have to update the overlay district so that FEMA will cover the updated maps. If we don't have it approved, they will cover those zones in case there's some flood emergency. But essentially, this is just updating the maps and some of the language as FEMA
doesn't affect the insurance people pay.
Yeah.
All right, so indirectly.
That's where this is key as a,
Okay, so
It's a
indirectly,
bylaw.
this may have a financial impact
Yeah.
on residents.
On residents, it could, yes.
All right, so we should probably make a recommendation on this one.
The bylaw review committee did recommend this unanimously.
So we have a motion.
Make a motion, accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no one opposed. Okay, next, article number 19. To see if the town will vote to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws, zoning article 8, 33C14. I believe that stands for chapter 14. As follows, add section A to include subsection numbers 1 through 8. Change the wording of A, 8 is in parentheses, to read, no common driveway shall be constructed within 75 feet of any principal or accessory structure existing or to be served thereby. Replace subsection number 9 with a section B to read as follows. All principal and accessory structures shall be serviced by a driveway that is located within 150 feet of those structures in which driveway must meet the minimum construction standards herein specified.
I believe this one gives a lot of fire protection, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think this is one that's come up over the last few years. This is one of the confusing ones. They're contradictory. I know Henry had brought it up in the past, and he suggested deleting a portion, and Jim, our building commissioner, felt that that still wasn't going to fix it. So it was kind of discussed last year at annual town meeting and then in the fall, and ultimately it didn't go on either one of those. So, I mean, it's distinguishing between a common driveway and the distance that a common driveway can be from a principal structure, and then how close a regular driveway needs to be to the structure. And it does deal with public safety. Obviously, if there's an emergency, they can't, pull up to your driveway and then have to run like 300 feet to get to your house. So it is related to public safety, but there was a distinction between the distance for the common driveway versus a regular driveway. And that's what's attempted to be figured out with this wording change. So I don't see that it has a financial impact.
It doesn't appear to.
I just make a motion to accept, just to move on and take a vote on it,
Okay.
just so we can.
Sue, do you have something?
No, it just your explanation. I think when I read the section B again over, it answered my question, so I'm good.
Okay.
All right, so Mr. Howcroft made a motion to accept this article as read, I believe.
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor? Those opposed? Number 20, to see if the town will vote to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws, zoning article number 8, by adding a subsection H to section 331 and section 332, and adding a section I to 334 as follows, or taking any action relative thereto. Okay, no material or supply shall be stored or permitted to remain on any portion of the property outside the building constructed thereon. Any finished products or semi-finished products stored on the property outside of the building shall be confined to the rear half of the property and shall be appropriately screened on all sides, but shall in no instance be placed on that side of the building paralleling an existing or proposed street. No waste material or refuse shall be dumped upon or permitted to remain on any part of said property outside the building constructed thereon. So the way I would understand this in layman's terms is we just want to make sure people are keeping their properties neat and tidy and it doesn't look like a hoarder is there, I would imagine.
He's, building inspector's reported that he has a couple of really hot spots that take a great deal of his time, and he needs some further backup in order to have people clean their property.
Yeah, it's common sense on this one. We have a motion? We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one's opposed?
Oh.
Okay, number
This is
21,
what this is.
to see if the town will vote to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws zoning article 8, section 334, subsection E, by deleting subsection 6 and 7, and adding in their place the following section to read as follows. Section 334E, 6 in parentheses, upland circle. No dwelling, building, or structure having permitted use in any district shall be erected on a lot unless the lot has an area within its bounds which encompasses an upland circle with a minimum diameter equal to 90% of the required frontage, within which the frontage or a distance equal to the frontage at the front yard setback line must pass. That's the article.
Make the motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Number 22, see if the town will vote to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws zoning article 8, section 331 by eliminating subsection 13, light manufacturing, and renumbering those items which follow.
So this is removing light manufacturing from being able to, have a light manufacturing plant to go into the residential district.
So that wouldn't be a good thing. Have a light manufacturing plant going into our neighborhood, somebody's neighborhood.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed. Number 23, to see if the town will vote to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws zoning article 1.2 definitions for a street or way as follows. Street or way, a public way, a private way shown on a plan approved under the provisions of the subdivision control law, or a private way in existence when the provisions of the subdivision control law became effective in town, having, in the opinion of the town's planning board, suitable grades and adequate construction to serve the proposed use of land abutting thereon, or served thereby, and to the installation of municipal services to serve such land in the building erected or to be erected thereon, having a minimum pavement width of 22 feet and a minimum layout width of 30 feet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed? Okay, number 24, to see if the town will vote to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws, Article 6, the soil conservation bylaw, as shown in Appendix C, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Make a motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed?
Number 25 and 26 were both removed.
So on to 27, to see if the town will vote pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 110A, authorize the town clerk's office to remain closed on any or all Saturdays, and where the last day for performance of any act in any such office falls on a Saturday, when said office is closed, the act may be performed on the next succeeding business day, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Mr. Chair, I duly read the discussion on this particular article. I voted for the article, and I want to make clear only that it did not apply to any type of voting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so I want that, written in the record that there'll be no impediment to anybody who wants to either cast a absentee ballot or a register to vote. The voting, the explanation, and I received that it did not involve any voter repression, so to speak. So that's why I voted. I'd like to have somewhere in the record that that's what. Otherwise, I wouldn't have supported it at all.
So you recommend this?
Well, I'll recommend it, yes, because I voted for it. But I did state that as my reservation, and I want that on the record. And since we take very, very detailed notes, and so we can.
Okay, so you're making the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, number 28. To see if the town will vote to implement a $25 certified abutters list fee by the Board of Assessors to provide the service of generating a certified list of abutters if a written request is submitted by a petitioner, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Number 29, to see if the town will reserve from FY 2022 Community Preservation Fund estimated revenues the sum of $10,067 for administrative expenses, 10%, in parentheses is the amount of $20,133 for open space purposes, 10%, so that's the same amount, $20,133 for historic preservation, another 10% for affordable housing, and the remaining $130,859 to the FY 2022 Community Preservation Fund budgeted reserve, or to take any other action relative thereon or in relation thereto.
Make a motion.
So, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Julie, should some of those be in parentheses and some not?
Huh?
Should some of those numbers be in parentheses and some not? Because is it like an increase or a decrease?
No, so we have to put 10% into each one, but then we specify the amount for each of those. For the 10%, just so that it's clear.
Okay.
So they're not negative numbers.
No.
Okay.
Just specifying more than 10%.
Okay, so it's just in parentheses for that purpose.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, moving on to number 30. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate the sum of $25,000 from the undesignated fund balance of the Community Preservation Act funds account and/or the FY 22 budgeted reserves of the Community Preservation Act funds for the purpose of improvement and rebuilding the soccer fields at the Acushnet Elementary School located at 800 Mill Road, all pursuant to the Community Preservation Act for recreational purposes, or to take any other action relative thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed. Number 31, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate the sum of $10,000 from the undesignated fund balance of the Community Preservation Act funds account and/or the FY 22 budgeted reserves of the Community Preservation Act funds for the purpose of repairing and resurfacing the basketball courts at Polk Park, located at 96 Polk Street, all pursuant to the Community Preservation Act for recreational purposes, or to take any other action relative thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? No one's opposed. Number 32, to see if the town will vote to authorize the members of the cemetery board to perform perform work in the cemeteries and to allow the Board of Selectmen to determine the compensation to be paid to said members and to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second, all in favor? And opposed? Number 33, to see if the town will vote to authorize the members of the Recreation Commission to perform work in the park and to allow the Board of Selectmen to determine the compensation to be paid to said members or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor? None opposed? Number 34, to see if the town will vote to fix the maximum amount that may be spent during fiscal year 2022, beginning on July 1st, 2021, for the revolving funds established in town bylaws for certain departments, boards, committees, agencies, and officers in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53, E and F. So the revolving funds that are listed here are the public library, authorized to spend is the library trustees, use of funds, library activities, and the FY22 limit is $6,000 for the library. Conservation, there's an amount of $2,500. Park and Recreation, there's an amount of $12,500. Council on Aging, there's an amount of $30,000.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed? Number 35, to see if the town will vote to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws by adding a new fund to the table in Article 21 to authorize revolving funds for use by certain town departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers under the Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half as follows. So you can see the graph there, and to fix the maximum amount that may be spent during fiscal year 2022, beginning on July 1st, 2021, for the revolving fund as $10,000, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
This would be adding recycling as a revolving fund with a maximum of $10,000 to spend each year.
Any purpose for the revolving fund was?
So the recycling center takes money for people when they're dropping off TVs, mattresses, whatever it is. And they would like to keep the money in a revolving fund so that when they need to do work over there or they've had a cave and do whatever kind of work, that they can use that money instead of depleting their operating budget.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? No one's opposed. Okay, number 36, to see if the town will vote to allow the Board of Library Trustees to sell for the sum of $1 the discarded books and periodicals of the Acushnet Public Library to the Friends of Acushnet Public Library and nonprofit library support group, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion to accept.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed. Number 37, to see if the town will vote to establish an infrastructure capital expense stabilization fund established under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, effective for fiscal year 2022, beginning on July 1st, 2021, and to transfer from available funds a sum or sums of money into said fund, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Question on this. We have, stabilization type of fund. Does this limit the use if you want to use, so you only can use the money for infrastructure?
Yep, so I actually have a slight adjustment to the article from town council because we do have to list the purpose for the, we have to specify the purpose for the stabilization, so I have added here in the middle, for the purpose of funding major improvements to the town's physical infrastructure, including but not limited to transportation infrastructure such as streets and sidewalks, water and sewer infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and telecommunications infrastructure. So just trying to collapse a big enough group in there, but essentially, yeah, it can only be used for major improvements to physical infrastructure.
Now, following it again, all the activities in Article 1, that if we have some type of major setback, could be all sorts of things. If we had all our available resources into this stabilization fund, rather than the other stabilization fund, we have two of them, if this passes, that in turn we could not use that money to offset any type of impact, negative impact in any of the activities in Article 1. In Article 1 are all the your police services, your fire services, your
In
schools.
the operating budget?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I missed the rest of the question. So in order to spend money from any stabilization, your general or any other specific ones you have, you need a 2/3 vote from town
Correct.
meeting. So it's a safe place to put it, so that and the thought process behind this is, we know that we need a lot of work on, the target for this was essentially the roads, but I think there's a lot of other infrastructure that could come up in the future, and instead of just kind of putting it into the general one, let's tuck it away and have a purpose for it, and hopefully next year we should have extra money as part of the tail end of COVID, and maybe get to put some more money into that, and then be able to come up with a really good plan as to how we can use it, let that money compound upon itself, and use it in a meaningful way that, right now the amount of money we get from Chapter 90 and we have in our budget isn't enough to really make a dent, but if we can really fund this and have it be a more meaningful source for us to accomplish a true 10-year plan for our infrastructure, that's the goal of doing this. And using the extra money that we got from COVID, essentially, the goal here is $500,000 to be able to put in there, and a lot of that money is money that we got because of COVID. And I know next year we probably will have an additional, I know right off the bat, we cut $410,000 this year for our revenues for our local receipts, and we did get that money. So that's automatic free cash that we're going to have next year above and beyond what we normally would. So again, if we can look at this year and then maybe hopefully using that money next year, put a good amount into this fund, it would be a meaningful amount that we could actually do something with.
Right, Antonia, here's the problem having, now I may be barking up the wrong tree.
Okay.
But here we have two stabilizations. Then we have to make a decision of what funds go in. Can general monies that are surplus can be assigned to either one by the town vote?
Yes.
Now, say for example, we have a major catastrophe that affects our emergency services and police and fire.
Yep.
And the only funds that we have available are in this infrastructure stabilization. We would not be able to transfer stabilization money to offset that major catastrophe in a frontline services. Is that correct?
I'll have to look at that, because at any stabilization, in order to pull money from it, you need a 2/3.
I know that.
So
but
I would
even
think
then, people would be wanting to vote 2/3 to transfer on a major type of,
Right, you're asking, could you move it from this stabilization
but
to
you
the
won't be
other?
able, but the way this is set up, you won't be able to transfer. You can have 9/10 of the people at the town meeting wanting to do that, and the town moderator would have to rule that transfer would be out of order.
I can check that for you, because I'm actually not sure if you could take it. I feel like you would be able to if you said we wanted to take it out and use it for something else and pull it out.
Then why do we need two stabilization for if you can
No, that's a good point.
multi-use?
That's a good point, but we do have over $3 million in our general
I
stabilization.
know, but I'm thinking 10 years hence.
So the, I mean, the
Say we have a
concern is,
major hurricane, you know, that affects our emergency services beyond physical damage.
I think, I mean, from my perspective, with what we're looking to put into our general stabilization too, we're gonna be at 10% of our overall budget, which is our goal. Like that's hitting our goal. And I think we still put money into the general stabilization, but I think there does hit a point where if we have, you know, $5 million in our stabilization, do people start looking at it and saying, well, what are you gonna do with it? And so that was the thought process behind this was, okay, like we shouldn't just keep buffering up our savings account. Let's look to target some of that for a specific purpose, but also keep it in a place where it's going to have a lot of interest compounding upon it, which is what the stabilization accounts do. So, I mean, and it's not something that could just be up for grabs where, say, you know, a random town meeting we could do,
Then you
we'll pull
need
that.
two-thirds.
Right. So that is the thought process. I wouldn't do something like this if we didn't have the 10% in our general
Right, but we may
stabilization.
not in the future. You know, it could be, we may need a lot more than the 10%.
No, I know what
I
you're
hope people
saying.
understand what, you know,
But
I'm
Julie,
trying to
isn't
say
this-
here,
would
that I
it
don't
just-
want to see the future tied, you know, you know, we may be good for a couple of years, but beyond that, and then you have this bylaw that could, in a dire emergency, tie the town's hands in using money for what I call Article 1 related activities, which police, fire, or even our schools and so forth. And it seems to me that it's a way of hiding money away from usage. And I don't think we should.
Well, no, in a sense. I mean, yeah, it is hiding money away, but it's for use. So that's the other piece of it is we need to come up with a plan and a game plan for a 5 or 10-year capital plan that is associated with that money. And that's definitely part of the process is, okay, you know, because again, 500,000 is a lot, but it's not a lot to tackle what we're looking for like really making a dent. Like we all know, like one street could be $300,000. So if we're looking at really making a difference across the town, all, what is it, 12, you know, however many square miles of town we have here, it's going to take a lot more than 500,000. But the point is, we know we have this. We're hoping to build up a little more and come up with a game plan. But then also we have the American Rescue Plan money. Like this actually is something that's more in the realm of something we can accomplish because of that ARP money in conjunction with it. Whereas like on a regular basis, I think this is such a great idea to do. But without the ARP money, it would take us a lot longer to really make it a meaningful impact. I don't think this is something that we're going to stash money away in and never use. That's what stabilization is. The general stabilization, I don't ever want to touch that money. Even through the pandemic, we were so lucky we didn't have to use it. And that's what you hope for. You hope that you keep that money there and it's your emergency and you never need to touch it and can just keep building. But that's why this is money that we want to put away, but we want to use it. We want to have a good plan to use it and spend it down. You know, but also kind of try to build it into something. If we can add a little bit of money to that every year and know that it's part of our 10-year plan and add money to general stabilization, I think that's a win-win. I know what you're concerned about too, but I just don't, I think that every year we're going to be looking at our overall reserves. And if we ever hit a point where our reserves were really low for general stabilization, that's where we would take a serious look at what we have over there and, you know, reevaluate.
So you want
That
to
wouldn't
add
be a
something?
one-year thing.
Yeah, no, this would cover things like the sewer lines, right, or the water lines, right, which we've talked about
Yeah.
over I don't know how many years as being really, those need to be changed, right?
Yes.
Like this is basically setting up a nest egg to start tackling those projects that we probably need to stop kicking the can.
Yes,
Is that's
that's correct.
So I'm thinking of this as kind of like you have the savings account, but then you have your vacation fund where you're
Yeah.
saving because you know you want to spend it.
Yes,
That's how I'm associating this with.
agreed.
So I hear everything that you're saying, John, but I also like that bucketing of that bucketing concept. Like this is the insurance money you hope you never touch, right? It's the insurance plan you never want to call on. And this is the money we have to set aside in order to really make a dent on these capital expenditures that we know we need to do. So you need to start planning for that, right? And you never want to touch, like, here's the safety money, but this is like, okay, safety money, but we're going to spend this, so be prepared.
As long as we adequately fund both.
Yeah, agree.
But see, I don't want to see the trend. Well, let's try to keep it away from certain, like I've seen certain other type of taxes that we have in town.
Yeah.
We're supposed to keep it
But
away
I
from
think
our.
this is a necessity to
I
tackle
don't
because
say
infrastructure is important, right? Because
Yes.
I've heard for years about these lines, these water lines, these water,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, $500,000 isn't going to make a dent if you've got a major break.
I think your definition of infrastructure has to be very clear for this particular fund. I mean, you know, the town chased water independence for a long time and wasted a lot of money. So I would not want to see infrastructure be used for somebody to decide we want to be water independent.
Right.
And so
So the good thing too is that, again, if whatever we do, if we're gonna spend this money, it's a 2/3 vote at town meeting. So again, that is kind of like an extra safety that one person can't get a crazy idea and say, let's do this with the money. It needs a 2/3 vote at town meeting, so it has to be something that's really well vetted and everyone agrees upon.
now who's writing the 10-year plan? Is that a
That'll be-
planner thing?
I would, yeah, I mean, it hasn't been done yet. We want to get this together, but once this is approved, yeah, that's 100% the first thing that we're going to look at. They would need the planner, I mean, the DPW, you know, building commissioner, board of selectmen. I mean, I think it should be like a group effort here to come up with a really solid plan. Someone else is gonna say that.
No, go ahead.
I think without the town council's input and the amendment they made, this would be very generalized and
Yeah.
kind of vague. But I think with their input, it kind of defines how it's going to be utilized. So it kind of helps in our understanding of it.
And the other thing I was going to say when we talked about, you know, your concern that, you know, put it into stabilization and then you can use it for anything. Again, it's something that we're anticipating spending this money. And I also don't want to get into the habit of if we just have the general stabilization and now we tuck all this money in there and then we're spending from stabilization, where's your cutoff point? Like that's why I like the buckets too, because for me, yeah, like the vacation and the insurance, like if we get in the habit of, all right, let's spend, you know, 400,000 of stabilization this year, it's just going to become a trend that everyone's going to want to keep doing. And then where do you cut yourself off? So I like to keep them separate. That's what I would prefer. And I completely understand what you're saying, but I think too, this is something that you look at every year and you look at your current situation. And if the situation takes a downturn and you know you need to really hold on to your general stabilization for other things, then you do that.
Another question. Stabilization of the amount we have is used to establish a credit for the bond. And the more we have in the better credit we get. Is that correct?
That's correct.
With this, having money in this account as well, count to,
Yes.
to keep our credit rating in a bond, on bonds
Yes,
higher?
it would.
It will.
Yep.
It would be one factor as well.
Yep. They
Okay,
look at all of
that's
your
also clear
stabilization.
enough,
Yeah.
too.
Okay, I think we had a motion on this, right? Did we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. I'm going to vote no, just for the record.
Okay, we have one opposed.
It's only good. I'm going to give an odd one. My father was chair of the finance committee for Haven for over 20 years, and he never allowed any money in stabilization. And the reason why I disagreed with him, but he said because the town fathers would lay awake nights thinking how they'd get their hands on that money. He says, so just don't keep it there. But it's inconsistent with one of the remarks I've heard.
Okay, so number 38, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a sum or sums of money to transfer to the OPEB fund or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto, and it's in the amount of $100,000.
Motion approved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed? Okay, on to number 39, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a certain sum of money to be transferred to the stabilization fund as established in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, number 40, to see if the town will adopt the resolution outlined in Appendix E of this document to wit.
I have to read that. It's-
All right, so.
We'll update it. It's the resolution to thank everyone who
Okay,
left service of the town in the year 2020. And I'll have that list.
Motion.
it's to thank all the committees that donate their, to all the people that on these committees that donate their time to the town, right?
Yeah, and so specifically, we thank the people who have served and left
Okay.
in 2020.
I got you.
So you don't get
When you
thanked
leave,
until
we'll
you leave.
thank you.
Every year I say I'm gonna leave, but then here I am.
I know.
We're glad you're here.
Nobody's leaving.
Once you get in, you can't get out.
That's it.
All right, so that concludes our articles, but I know we still have, we saved one thing. We were gonna make an amendment to how we voted on our reserve fund line item last week. So we'll need somebody to make that amendment, and then we'll
Is
go
that
on.
the transfer, no, not transfer, but I don't want, putting the amount of money that we, I don't know, whether we have a set figure, but the 386,000 into a reserve fund, so we can re-examine the strategic plan effective from the school department or any other purposes.
I don't think it can be the 386 because we had a deficit of 33. So I think it needs to be the balance of the 386
I
minus.
can't hear you too well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The 386 was just the school portion, but we had a deficit of 33,000.
Right,
So
oh, you
we
get
have
that.
to, so it has to, so it's really 353.
Right.
Whatever the
Yeah,
final
it's
number
Whatever it
is.
is, okay.
351,838.
That'd be great.
And that's
Thank you
actually
very much.
increased the finance committee
Yes.
secretary.
That's right.
So what's
So-
the amount?
So 351,838 is the
Increase.
that we could increase, yeah, to be completely level for revenue and expenses.
You got that, Kathy?
What would the total amount be on
Reserve is 150, right?
Yeah,
that?
We have 150 in the
So
reserve fund.
400 and never wrote that whole number.
I'm not gonna do that in my phone.
My calculator.
501,838. Yeah, and 150, 501,838.
Number 1088.
838,
838.
501,838.
Okay, so we had a motion from John, right, from Mr. Hopcroft, I'm sorry.
Not that
No,
old.
just out of respect.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed? Okay, motion passes.
So we covered
We're not-
every
we're not
article,
done
right?
yet.
We don't have anything on,
We've
That's
covered
amazing.
we've covered every article, we voted on all the budgets.
we voted on every article but one, right? The one that we decided to hold off. to the-
Right. Article 4,
Oh, okay.
we have to go back to that one.
Oh, all right. Yes, all
Article 4, and then I might ask if you guys also want to reconsider the Article 17 that we passed over before we were voting
Yeah,
on.
that
Just
was the
because I
only
don't
one.
want it to be left out.
Right.
right. Okay, so, all right, so let's go back to 4. All right, to see if the town will vote under the provisions of the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 41, Section 108, or any amendments thereto to fix the salaries of all elected officials and to fund and approve collective bargaining agreements for fiscal year 2022, and raise and appropriate any sums or sums therefore, and further raise and appropriate any sum or sums of money for the maintenance of the several departments of the town, or for any other necessary changes in accordance with the amount recommended by the Finance Committee as shown in the final column of the warrant.
Make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed? Okay, we'll go back to 17. To wrap things up here. To see if the town will vote to amend Article 9, Stormwater Management Bylaw of the General Bylaws for the town of Acushnet as shown in Appendix A, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed?
Now I think it's
Okay, so we have voted on all the articles officially now and voted on all the budgets, FY 2022. So good job, everybody. It was a lot
Why
of
don't
work.
you bring some champagne?
Wasn't sure if we could bring that to the police department, you know?
We're all of legal age.
Yes, we are.
Is there gonna be a need to have a meeting, before the town meeting?
I don't know if you guys are in it. We do have a meeting before to appoint people to the vote committee, but I don't know if the finance committee is part of that. Did Lisa send you anything, Kathy? I forget now, maybe it's just the school committee and the board of selectmen.
Yeah.
The book school,
Oak Holly?
yeah. Yeah, it must not be, if Kathy didn't get it, it's not you guys.
So it's nothing to do with us, it's not that, we have no impact on that. The only other thing tonight that we have to take care of is some minutes from the meeting of March 24th. I don't have the minutes in front of me, so I don't know who we're in attendance was myself, Sue, Mr. Ferrera, Mr. Howcroft, Eric, and Gail.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for all your hard work and participation in this budget cycle. It was unlike any other that we've encountered, but we managed to get through it, and we can all let our big sigh of relief, I guess, right now.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Everyone wants to leave?
Oh, I'll second.
Second.
Everyone wants to
Sorry.
leave?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.
All right.